So I wanted to go over a project I've been working on, and this is an in-ground mystery fig tree that was put in by previous owners about 20 years ago, and it was labeled as a Latarula, or an Italian honey tree, and it most certainly is not that because it has never given us breba or main crop fruit that has ripened in Zone 9A here in Oregon City. And so I tried for years to be patient and it just wasn't working out. So this year I made the decision to sacrifice it. And what I've done is to take off the majority of the superstructure of the tree and instead begin grafting numerous different types of grafts to this tree. So what this video is going to show you is a couple of the different techniques I used and what the end result was in terms of after I was done with all the grafting. And then in future videos, maybe a month from now, I will talk about what was a success and what wasn't. So, you can see the list of what I decided to graft on here. And in the end, there actually was a little bit more room to come back. And so I'm going to probably throw a few more varieties on the back side of the tree. But I hope you enjoy this video. Okay, I'm going to show you a tongue and whip graft. And this is a very secure graft. One of the keys is making sure that the scion and rootstock are going to be similar in diameter. And so here you can see that they are. Now this little nubbin on the bottom, I'm going to take off. And if you can see, there's a little node right there that I'm going to then use for a chip graft later on. So I'm just going to take off that little node. And what I have left now is this. So it's there's 1 node, 2 node, and 3 node. And so now I'm going to prepare the recipient site first. And so what I'm going to do is come in and try to get this on an angle down to a specific point. Admittedly, it's a little hard doing this backwards, but you want to try to get this pretty smooth without any lumps or bumps so that the contact is good between the scion and the rootstock. So that's pretty good there. And I want to make a matching cut on the donor site, or on the scion. And so I'm going to do that. Now you could just do that. And that, you could electrically tape that and that's fine. But what I'm going to do instead is called a tongue and whip, where you make a little notch. And again, I'm just rocking this back and forth. This knife is so sharp, you don't want to add a lot of pressure to it. And I'm going to do the same thing on the scion. And so that's my cut there. And then what I'm going to do is insert it a little bit like a lock-in key. So that will give you better scion contact. And then I'm just going to tape that. And that is a tongue and whip graft. Now again, you can see gappage here. I can put my knife right through. So when you're taping this, you want to make sure you're cinching that as far down as you can get it. And that increases the cambium contact. It kind of doubles the surface area of the cambium. So that is the what a tongue and whip graft looks like. So the next step then is to tape it. So I'll show you that here. Okay, so the next step is taping it. And I'm using Scotch brown brand 3M electrical tape. So I'm starting on the rootstock, and you just have to make sure to keep this really taut as you're going around, because you really want to press those two together. So again, really squeezing that as you go, pulling it tight. And this will stay on here for quite a while until it's really has taken. So again, really cinch that down. And now, I mean, I'm pulling, I can't feel any give on this. And then so the last part is just to help with prevention of moisture loss and desiccation is I just wrap a little bit of parafilm. And again, you have to, when you do this, you have to be careful. Some people will pre-wrap the part that they know isn't going to be is going to be exposed after you do the graft. I'm not good enough yet to do that, and this doesn't seem too hard. And again, I'm just really securing the graft site with my fingers so that there's no possibility of me disrupting that contact point. So kind of all the way around, covering the top, and that is a tongue and whip graft. So the next graft I'm going to show you is called a bark graft, and this is something when you want to use it where the rootstock is a lot thicker than the scion. And so here I have a little itty bitty scion, and that is that's going to go into this. And so what you're going to do instead, and I use a double beveled grafting knife for this one, is you just make a little cut through the bark so that you're going to expose the cambium. So that's step number one. The next thing you can do is use either a bark lifter, or I have a Japanese chisel, and you're just going to lift up the bark to expose the cambium underneath. And basically what you're doing is creating a little pocket. So you can see it's nice and lifted up. And then all I'm going to do, actually one other trick that I've seen is a small little back cut that's made on the back side of the cutting to help expose more cambium. And so you've got the front cut and then this small little back cut. And all I'm going to do is tuck this in, snug little pocket. So that's pretty good contact. I can use the back of the chisel to kind of push that in more. And then that'll get taped. And I'll show you that here in a minute. So again, the goal here is to maximize contact with the cambium. And so this will get taped very tightly all the way up to the top. Now, one thing to be careful of with the bark grafts is there's a little gap there. And that little gap could allow moisture through. Now, at the beginning, for the first month or so, it'll be covered. But one thing that I got was some grafting putty. And I actually got it from England. I'll put the variety down in the show notes or in the notes. But this is to basically really get in there and not let any moisture go into the gap there. And then the last step is just the parafilm again to make sure that you don't, this is a thin cutting, it's susceptible to desiccating. And so you want to make sure that does not happen. So now that that's been nicely secured, you can just go around the cutting. And again, I'm securing it where it's attached. If you lever too much, it'll snap. Again, some people paint this. This is just what I do. And that is a terminal bark graft. All right, I'm going to try to show you a chip graft here. And so I always like to get the recipient site on the rootstock ready first. And so again, this is going to be a little bit difficult with the way I'm oriented here, but you're just trying to expose cambium. And so again, ideally you're not exposing more than you actually need. So that will be my chip recipient site. Just try to flatten it out a little bit. And then I'm going to prepare the chip off of the small piece I removed from the last portion. So I'll get that ready here. I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so I've harvested my node, and so what that's going to look like. And again, the recipient site's a little big, but that'll just get parafilmed right on and then covered by foil. So let me show you what that looks like. All right, so probably need a couple of pieces here to get the full coverage, but you really want to get this tight so that there's no shift. So that's just holding it in place for a second while I get more. And then what I'm going to do, because this doesn't have, parafilm, while it's great, it doesn't have a lot of tensile strength. So I'm just going to go around this numerous times. And then one more piece up top. And so then the last thing I'm going to do, which is usually not something I'm a big fan of, but it has a little bit more strength, is using some plastic buddy tape just to really stretch and go kind of above the node. I don't want to cover the node with this stuff because I want it to be able to escape the parafilm. I mean, theoretically, it will escape this as well, but so that is how I secure a chip graft. And then this will get covered with foil. And so this is the end result. It is, it's 12 different varieties, 36 different grafts. 30 of those were whip and tongue or tongue and whip, whatever you want to call it. 3 of them were modified cleft grafts, and the other 3 were chip grafts. So I've protected them here with baggies and electrical tape secured to the branches just to keep any moisture off of it. And I'm going to do my best to be patient and wait a month, and I'll peek in and then update you all on how it looks.